Okay, it's obviously my opportunity to speak to the appropriation bill and the budget that just was, and it's a really perhaps interesting mixed bag for MacKillop in the sense that there are some really good initiatives, and which I'm going to touch on first of all. We were very, very fortunate to be looked after and represented in the education field. I know that MacKillop, with the Meningie Area School, receiving $9.7 million to finish that upgrade that was started probably right back in the Labor days, but certainly rolled out during the Marshall years between 2018 and 2022. It will consist of an administration library build at the school, and I think it's a building there as well, but 2 or 3 buildings to finish off that school build, which is an important little area school in the sense that Meningie finds itself quite isolated, but also belongs to a very important Indigenous and Aboriginal community of Narung, and obviously supports that community with education. Although there is a primary school out there, it's certainly the area high school for those students from Narung. We also then were lucky enough to see another 6 or 7 other schools then receive further funding, Ms. Acting Deputy Speaker, in regards to the fact that these are upgrades and builds and maintenance works that have been long overdue. And it's really, really a pleasure and to be able to recognise that these schools are going. So we've got the Kumandook Area School, which I think is at least $1.6 million for a new science lab. Kumandook Area School is obviously on the Dukes Highway. It's south of Tailem Bend. It's north of Canalpin and Tintinara. Again, it finds itself perhaps in the middle of no man's land. There's not a real town there of any sort of substantial development. I don't even think it used to have a store there at Kumandook, but that's now closed. I don't know why the member for Hammond didn't look after that store well enough to maintain its vibrancy, but he certainly didn't help in participate. I know the mayor from Coorong Council, he's also a regular attender of Kumandook store and wasn't able to keep it open either. But anyway, the area school is still going, and it does have a valuable cohort of students, and they do need a new science lab, so that's wonderful news for that school. We've also got the Newbury Park Primary School, which is having a roof replacement. This is a primary school in Millicent. There's 2 primary schools in Millicent. This would be the South Primary School. It's a big complex. It's obviously on the southern end of Millicent. I think there's about 300 students there. Then obviously there's a North Primary School as well with another 300. So Millicent's a vibrant town of MacKillop, second, if not equally, first biggest equal town with Naracoorte with about 5,000 to 6,000 people. And it's good to see the Newbury Primary School recognised as well. The other one that we looked up is Naracoorte High School. We've got a music room. I know the music room they were using was an old wooden cladded building stuck on stumps that started to rot away. The walls started subsiding, became unsafe, and they had to move out of this music room. There's been no real alternative room found for music, and it's been stuck in amongst other rooms, which does not help other classrooms in concentration when you've got a music room making all the noise and sounds that they can. Sometimes it's wonderful, sometimes it'll be obviously in the learning infancy. Naracoorte South Primary School, another one that's also a school that we've got 2 primary schools in Naracoorte, North and South. This South has already had, I think we had bathrooms being done up through the Marshall years. There's further bathroom refurbishment there for the Naracoorte South Primary School, which is wonderful to see. So bad with the toilets in the South Primary School that the students were resistant to go and use the toilet. So this is a wonderful addition and upgrade to that school. The Tintinara Area School's got a re-stumping and ceiling and cabinetry replacement, so Tintinara also has an area school. Again, it finds itself where Canalpin doesn't have a school at all. The next school south of Tintinara is Keith, so it finds itself again in the middle of sort of nowhere, a bit more of a town in Tintinara. They do have a supermarket town, great sporting club. Sometimes a good stop-in highway stop for the Dukes Highway. It is a really sound area school, and I'm sure that they will appreciate this. Not only that, they also go into the second role of funding where the pool remediation is also happening there to keep that school and the pool going as well. And then there's Lameroo, and it's got a district kindergarten there, upgrading to toilet facilities. So we've been really recognised in the education area. We're very, very much appreciative of these upgrades, and I thank the Minister for that, and thanking obviously MacKillop. In the way of health, we were very fortunate at the last budget by the Labor government where they rolled out $8 million to the Naracoorte Hospital. And then on top of that, in this budget, they've added another $1 million to look at a review of the hospital and what the hospital actually requires over the long term, and obviously to consider the fact that this hospital had $3.6 million spent on it during the Marshall years, which upgraded a disinfectant room plus the emergency operation and recovery room, both upgrade to the sterilisation room. That was the 3.6. Then the Malinowskis government has rolled another $8 million. I know that the Naracoorte HAC Health Advisory Committee has given an undertaking and a plan to the Minister for Health, or SA Health, in their wishes for the hospital. So it'll be very interesting to see where this $8 million is going to be spent, but I've yet to see and hear from them in this area, but I know it's not far away. And then there's this $1 million for this review. And if this review finds what it should, and I hope it can, look at everything about the hospital for aged care, emergency operations and day surgery, overnight stays, beds, so forth, and whatever that upgrade should look like right across the whole piece of infrastructure there, recognising, I believe, at least 20 years ago, that hospital was up for a major upgrade back then, and it has been put back and back and back until we've now recently seen some funds, and good funds, being spent on that hospital. And I'm sure the Naracoorte and surrounding communities will be looking forward to that. Moving on, they've got now electronic medical records and regional expansion of $31 million. That will be interesting to see how that works around the local health networks. I believe that it will be mainly running and run out through the Mount Gambier system. Mount Gambier is a major medical hub for MacKillop, where Naracoorte and other smaller hospitals around the region can't handle any small operations. They generally end up down towards Mount Gambier, and then if it's of a serious nature, then everyone heads north towards Murray Bridge and Adelaide for their health requirements. So I'm hoping that the electronic medical records does actually cover off the regions and expansion of this, and that the medical records does work better than it has in the past, look after patient confidentiality, but also that the records actually follow those patients. Interesting to see that the Regional Skills Development Fund of $10 million across TAFE and expansion through, I imagine mostly through Mount Gambier and the TAFE development down there. I know that they've also seen funds go towards forestry, we've seen funds go towards skills. We know that the area of the Limestone Coast, working with the member for Mount Gambier in this area about TAFE, university skills, and all that happens around in Mount Gambier and up into MacKillop, that any sort of spending in skills will be welcomed by business and industry and investment. One of the interesting ones that we know it's widespread across regional South Australia is the SA Jetties Renewal Program. It's $20 million over 4 years. It could obviously be around $5 million per year. At least there's funds there. Interesting to see where these funds end up. I know that the Kingston Council is one of, I think, 4 or 5 towns, or 4 or 5 jetties that's earmarked to be first out of the ranks for an upgrade. I know now that the Kingston Jetty, for example, has been closed and because of its state of disrepair, and it certainly is being missed by tourists and the locals, being able to be able to walk down that jetty, as it is a real tourist drawcard, as it was already talked about by the member for Flinders when he talks about jetties and all the local towns on the Eyre Peninsula and their jetties and how it's a piece of iconic infrastructure for tourists and locals. Then moving on further down, we've got coming back further down, we've also seen some money, $26 million towards additional aircraft for the state's firefighting capabilities. We're not sure where that will line up, how many aircraft. I'm led to believe that Mount Gambier Naracoorte is going to benefit from this process. I think it was at least another 2 aeroplanes stationed in the Limestone Coast for those obviously horrific types of days, and worse still when we do have those horrific type of fire events. The aircraft are part of the firefighting armour that we have to protect life and assets, and obviously everything else that can be wiped out in one of those horrific fires. So we're going to welcome that expenditure in the CFS towards those aircraft, and it'll be interesting to see those planes put to good use. One of the things that I'll cover off further down, but just to note that the abolishing of stamp duty for first home buyers, we actually welcome this process and this whole new idea in the sense of trying to get new homes into first home buyers and removal of that stamp duty, and obviously making it as easy as possible for first home buyers. But most importantly, I would like to see those first home buyers with those builds in regional South Australia, and that is most imperative. The Office for Regional Housing is obviously starting a new office in the sense of regional key worker scheme, looking at and they spend by the government to look at health workers, teachers, police officers, and regional workers. I think it's a new piece of it's an announcement by the Labor government that's been out for at least a few months, because they rolled out their social housing, and in parallel they rolled out their government housing policy at the same time. We do welcome this policy. We think it's a great policy for regions to have these government employee housing started and restarted to be built out in the regions, because it is my belief, through the Minister for Regional Growth and Housing Nick Champion, that it hasn't been done since the 80s. And obviously there's been a number of governments over that period that have shied away or thought it wasn't needed, that the government needed to be in this housing area for their employees, like teachers and nurses and police officers, and now it's more important than ever. And we welcome the integration from government being in this area of building this housing again, and obviously then that the government's being, let's say, given the responsibility and taking the initiative of getting these houses built in regions, and I'm all for as many houses as possible into the regions. Slightly on the negative side, but at least there's some monies there, and we'll just always be wanting more. Probably this wasn't the budget to address this, but it's, we saw $10 million being rolled out to regional roads. We're just not sure how that works and what that will fund, knowing that there's a $3 billion road backlog regionally. And that's not just this government's fault. It's a number of governments that have obviously not met this this area to let it get to where it has. We will always want better roads, safer roads for regions, and particularly in the Limestone Coast and Mackillop. The other one that's a little bit interesting is seeing that this $3.2 million is going to be rolled out over 2 years to support the Sheep EID, Electronic Identification Scheme. I'm not sure where this is going to land. I was very much in favour, and still will be, that the monies goes towards infrastructure to monitor and manage the tag readers. But I'm not sure whether it's a great use of government funds to spend money on tags for 1 or 2 years, perhaps putting a false sense of value on those tags when they're really going to cost producers $2 and they might be saving $1 by having a 50% reduction over 1 or 2 years. Anyway, all I say about in regards to that sheep electronic identification scheme is that we really do want exemptions in this system, where farmers who breed their lambs and sheep and then never sell them but only go straight to slaughter, we wonder whether they really do need an electronic tag in their ear, and the old system may, should and could work for them. The change in the patient assistant transport scheme, we've seen the Malinaskis government come up and double from 16 cents to 32 cents a kilometre, which is one of the Marshall policies. Great to see them pick up on this scheme. Now we also would like to see a little bit of an increase in the overnight stays from $40 to a more commensurate type rate that would represent what it really does cost to be in Adelaide, seeking health outcomes that the regions can't provide. I heard from the other speakers where they talk about this is a budget for the cost of living. I'm not sure how you bring that get that sort of analogy in that area, because it's a really, really tough one. We've got massive inflation. We're going to find it hard to find employees. We've got energy prices moving upwards. We've got the cost of housing going up. We know that rentals are going up, and to change all that in any one budget, I think that would be very much a big ask of one budget ever to be able to do that. But what I will say is this budget does recognise housing. I do know that this Labor government is considering finding and will find a model for affordable housing, and that is the number one thing I would like to see rolled out in the regions. There's never been a bigger opportunity to capture population and growth and employment in the regions as it is today, and that it will. Obviously, we need to house these people. And one of the things that I really do think that's been a failure, and we know that a little town like Bordertown has had a shortage of affordable housing since 2002, that we know that, and now that I believe it's across the board where there's a shortage of affordable housing right across regional South Australia. And then even we hear the member for Adelaide talk about the shortage of housing, and she's getting a number of more affordable housing builds in the city of Adelaide, and it's being addressed. And all I can say is I'm envious. I'm envious because they are getting the 200-300 houses in Adelaide, and I want those houses also to be built out in the regions, because I know we can use them, I know we can get the population out there, and I know the jobs are out there. In sense of energy, look, one of the things I talked about the energy bill just yesterday. I just want this government to do all it can to address energy and electricity prices and getting them down as fast as they possibly can. Yes, recognising carbon-free, yes, recognising clean green energy will be the way of the future, but please don't make it at the peril of a high-costing system or a high cost of energy where people can't afford to use it. And I say people, being it households, I'm talking about businesses, and I'm talking about families, and we just need affordable energy as much as we need affordable housing. We've already sort of touched on the roads, but MacKillop is it's not foreign to the massive backlog. We have a number of roads we'd like to address. We do need massive amount of expenditure. We need roads to be safe. We need the roads to be actually able to get their trucks and the heavy freight out of MacKillop, out of the Limestone Coast to the markets. And we obviously want all road users to be able to use them in a safe fashion to get from A to B. And that should be something we always aspire to. In the way of health, we've had a good rollout in the way of health when it's this Naracoorte Hospital, but there's a lot more to do. We do like the fact that we want infrastructure, be it the Naracoorte Hospital, but we know that Kingston Hospital needs money. We know that the Bordertown Hospital needs money and funds. Millicent Hospital, Penola Hospital, all need just a little bit of upgrade all the time, just keeping them up pace with modern expectations. Services, we need more nurses, we need more doctors, we'd like more palliative care, as we've already talked about. Education, yes, I talked about a magnificent rollout of education, but another thing that and this government here again, the Minister for Education, rolled out a good amount of money towards the Kingston School and the Early Learning Centre, and hopefully we're going to build an early learning centre, childcare facility right along the school, which was part of what the Marshall government was trying to achieve, and the Malinowskis government has come along and said, and working with the local government here as well, with the Kingston Council, hopefully we get a really good build down. We'd obviously like to see a lot more childcare, probably regionally South Australia, but I know that there's childcare in Bordertown where there's 40 or 50 students there, or children being looked after. And I know that they could double that facility and just meet the expectations of the town that we know that they're children that can't get into childcare, and that wouldn't be foreign in many towns, or it wouldn't be foreign to many towns. In other words, they'd all be wanting greater childcare access and early learning. And we all know that early learning is a great way of capturing students at a young age, stimulating the learning process, recognising schools are important, and the end of school results by the early learning are marked in a way of way up, therefore, outcomes for students when there is those options and opportunities for early learning. Regional growth, we want greater population, we've got great employment, we want cheaper and affordable energy. If we can do that and grow the regions, who's complaining? Because we just want to see MacKillop prosper. Infrastructure in the way of SA Water. We know that Bordertown's getting very close to being at its maximum water use. We know that a pipeline between Keith and Bordertown could cost up to $43 million. We know that the aquifer that they're sucking this water out for Bordertown is becoming stressed. We may need to look at future options there. Wellington East, a little development on the eastern side of the River Murray at Wellington, also is looking for better infrastructure for potable water for Wellington East. I heard from the member for Mount Gambier talk about Telstra. Telstra's trying to address, I think it's either 27 or 29, but at least 20-odd black spots for the Limestone Coast, with towers working with the state government, federal government and local government. If we can make that model work, if we can capture local government, I know that it's a bit of a stretch by asking local government to be part of a tower spend, because it's almost like, what's what they call it? It's not in part of the 3 Rs, their road, rates and rubbish. It's an extension of their responsibilities. But I think this is, as the member for Mount Gambier highlighted, this might be the once-in-a-lifetime sort of opportunity to address this, get these towers out there, fill in the black spots, and somehow get and recoup those funds. And I have said this, and I'm not sure whether it's a little bit mischievous, but there may be an opportunity that the rental of these towers goes back to local government until they're paid back the investment they made, but we haven't got far in those conversations yet. more to do, more money. Appreciate the spend that Labor government have spent in MacKillop, and we've got some good infrastructure there. And I accept that the appropriation bill as it is, and I support it. Thank you.